Nice.
Welcome back, all. Today I thought I'd give you a quick review on my buddy Andrew's new Transition Sentinel. We'll get a chance to ride the Yeti SB150 and the Transition Sentinel back to back and give you a fair head-to-head comparison.
I love that bike. This is such a good looking bike.
You can ride it if you want.
All he had to do was offer, and I was more than happy to swing a leg over this beast.
Which, this would be interesting, because you're probably a good at least 20 pounds lighter than I am. So,
yeah,
I would think that that would be closer to probably the right weight, or the right suspension setup for you versus me.
It's interesting how much thicker this top tube is on this bike than that bike.
I mean, they definitely err on the side of, instead of weight savings, just making shit beefier.
Yeah.
You know, which, I mean, like I said, if I was lightweight and in really good shape, and I was doing some cross-country race, well, that certainly wouldn't be the bike that I would buy.
Off the bat, there's some major differences between the Yeti and the Transition. The biggest being that Andrew's Transition is aluminum.
Oh, it's so poppy. This is definitely poppier than that bike. I don't know if it's just suspension adjustment, I'm sure that it is. But it's got a lot more bounce to it, which it's gonna feel good on the descents and the jumps. But I'll tell you right now, like even in the first 2 minutes, it's got significantly more pedal bob than that bike does.
This isn't going to be the type of video where I list the specs of either bike, but I will leave a link for both bikes in the description, so if you want to, you can feel free to look them up. This is more of a comprehensive feel in a direct comparison setting between the Transition Sentinel and the Yeti SB150, which are pretty close competitors with each other. As such, we thought it was a fair assessment to ride them back to back and give our thoughts and opinions on both.
I feel like I'm sitting up more on this bike too than that bike.
Like a little more on top of it?
Yes.
A little more forward?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I actually am, but it just feels that way. Like I said, especially because the geometry is so similar. What are your initial impressions on that?
It's definitely lighter than mine. It's not like crazy noticeable what it is.
Andrew was right. The Yeti is almost 2 full pounds lighter than his Transition. However, that being said, you have to remember that the Transition is aluminum, and if you switch to the carbon variation of the same bike, you eliminate that weight difference almost entirely.
This thing wants to jump, dude.
It does. It's kind of playful.
The biggest initial difference that I noticed right away was the Yeti felt more planted, whereas the Transition definitely wanted to get up in the air a lot more and play than the Yeti did.
That's interesting. So, as I'm standing, I definitely feel my weight and input more, which is actually, in my mind, ideal, because when you're seated pedaling,
that's the whole idea.
It's very level, but as soon as you're more in an active attack position,
that's literally what they market the Switch Infinity for, is because it does that double stroke directional change halfway through the stroke. It's flat on the small stuff, on the small hits, and then on the big hits you get the reactive input.
Like through there where I dropped the pedal because I couldn't remember, or the saddle, because I couldn't remember where I was. I could definitely feel like cranking on it to give it input, but it's pretty crazy.
When I'm not yanking on the bars or lifting or trying to pop it, it feels very planted. Like, it definitely wants to get airborne, but like on those corners and those descents, it was so stable.
Yeah, it's 100%. There was
like, it's planted. And here's the thing, it sounds counterintuitive for me to say it's planted but poppy, but it is. I mean, it's planted where I need it to be, and then as soon as I pull on the bars or as soon as I want to lift a little bit on the front end, it goes. It's just up in the air immediately.
And it really was. The Transition was super stable when I wanted it to be, and as soon as I lifted on the front bars, it was just ready to get up and go.
So get that seat down. Chunky.
Finally, we got some downhill, what these bikes were designed to do.
Oh, poppy, poppy, poppy. That's fun. Woo! Oh, you can tail with this. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's very tail happy.
Oh, yeah, this guy wants to go.
The more I rode this bike, the more impressed I was with how easy it was to get the front end of this thing up in the air. I would imagine that the transition would be even more fun if I got a little more comfortable and a lot more saddle time, because I was having a ton of fun.
Walk her up.
Yep, I see.
Just up here.
Thank you. Yeah, this feels great.
As we continued our way down Buttermilk Trail, I felt like we were getting a pretty fair assessment of these two enduro bikes. This trail has a lot of every kind of feature, and it's a good assessment to test a bike's all-around competence.
Thank you. Oh. Yep, it jumps.
I didn't want to be the person.
Yeah, I thought about it. Had the same thought process as you did of it's not my bike.
Yeah, but I still don't have like all the features memorized kind of thing.
This bike rides similarly enough to mine that I had a suspicion it would handle the drops like mine.
Yeah.
And it does.
100%.
It's very smooth on the landings, just FYI, confidence inspiring. I just did a 4-foot drop on a bike that I've ridden for a mile.
Yeah, it's intriguing because the handling is very similar between the two.
Uh-huh.
And they have, like, in terms of geometry,
I feel like this bike is poppier than that bike.
I agree. That, like, the suspension feel is different.
Yes.
Like, and not even, I haven't ridden either enough to really say one over the other. But it's weird because they behave similarly, but they use their suspension differently.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
For a couple long travel 29-inch enduro bikes, we sure were doing a lot of pedaling and a lot of rock gardens. That being said, I was pretty impressed with how these bikes were handling the terrain.
It's all right. It's not you. I'm back wheel. I don't know, because the saddle's a little high for me. I keep coming off of it and dropping the seat a little too low. And so I'm unweighted on the rear going over that. And that was wet. That's exactly what I'm running into. You gonna swap? This was fun. Thanks for letting me ride this.
Oh, for sure. It's crazy because they both really do.
I got it.
Like, geometry is really similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they feel similar, but then they each kind of have a little different attitude.
Well, and it's cool because the geometry is close, the tires are identical, and the frame size is similar, or is the same. So that all of that,
it's a little easier to make a direct comparison between the two.
yes, like I said, our limiting factor right now is suspension setup. Truly.
Yeah. Which will get better.
How tall are you?
About 5'10".
Okay, yeah. I guess that's a little bit. You probably, I'm like 5'9", so your seat's probably right for you. It's just a smidge tall for me.
I think it's honestly a smidge tall for me. I'm just, like I said,
I mean, because I can get a full stroke, but I'm almost locked out, whereas on mine, I'm like just slight
as
bend.
dumb as it sounds, I wanted to like get it there and then back it down a little bit, versus I felt like mentally if I kept it too low, I would never raise it.
And if I hadn't done that jump like 100 times, I probably would have felt like I was doing something stupid, but that was just, it was comfortable.
It's more than capable of.
Yeah, it felt good.
Yeah.
I mean, no fuss, no mess, nothing. Like, not even a hiccup.
Yeah.
I honestly wish you had turned around to see it because your bike jumps well.
Yeah, I'm super pumped.
And I'll show you the film. Like I said, I got it all caught.
It's gonna be a fun bike for sure.
As we close out our rides of each other's bikes, I had some final conclusions that I came to. 1. Both bikes handled the terrain very, very well, and although they were endurance and not all-around trail-focused bikes, they did admirably on both the uphill climbs, the rock gardens, and the downhill descents. 2. Although both bikes have very similar geometry and suspension travel, the way they approached the same problems of how to get down the trail was vastly different. This led to a completely different feeling between the two bikes while riding. And finally, 3. While I loved riding Andrew's Transition, it's a phenomenal bike, I was really glad to swing a leg back over to my Yeti. I'm sure a lot of it just has to do with what I'm comfortable with, and the Transition is a great bike. Andrew is loving it.
This is a way to properly break in a new bike.
So I would recommend that when you are looking to buy a new bike, that you definitely try all of the bikes you can get your hands on that you seem to be interested in. Because at the end of the day, even bikes with near identical specs can ride very, very differently from one another.